People have been asking for more traditional stuff, and Ohuhu also sent me a bunch of coloring tools like alcohol markers, acrylic markers, colored pencils, acrylic paint markers. So let's test them all out. First, I think we'll just go through all of the products, test them out individually, see how they work, and then do some shading attempts with it and see how that goes. First thing we'll be taking a look at are the Ohuhu acrylic markers. Now, I'm not a huge fan of shading, like I already said, not even in digital, so I don't have any traditional shading experience, and I'm not entirely sure what the difference is between things like acrylic and alcohol-based oil paints. So I guess we'll just test this stuff out and see how it goes. So this set comes with 24 colors, and it looks like a pretty decent selection as well. I think it covers like the entire color wheel. So with this, you should be able to shade pretty much whatever you want. You can see the amount of ink that's left right here. I'm pretty sure that's what that's meant to be. And this thing comes with a brush tip, and I think you're supposed to shake it before you use it. So let's test this. Okay, it draws a pretty smooth line. Yeah, that's actually that's pretty easy. Hold on. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's that's not coming off. Goes down pretty well. Brush tip is really good for precision. Now, the thing that I struggle with when it comes to traditional is I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to use these things, because normally I just color with it like this, and then I think you can make blends with it if you use different colors. I'm going to use green because red and green aren't exactly easy to blend, so I want to see how this goes. So if we just have the green over here. Okay, so it just looks like green, except with a darker value. And then, hold on a second, what if I use that red again? If I overlay red, interesting. So it doesn't really seem to be blending the red and green. It seems like you can just overlay colors on top of each other and create darker versions of it. So we have a flat sphere. Now, I'm curious if I place this green just straight on top of it. This one is like extremely messy, and I'm not sure why. But, oh yeah, by the way, this doesn't seem to be leaking through the paper. And this is just standard printer paper, so that's also pretty nice. But let's see how this works. Oh, whoa, that's actually super trippy. Okay, hold on. So what if I have purple? Yeah, it's just putting purple on top of it. With white, we can do just straight up highlights like that. This white one might actually be super useful for if you're working with ink, because hold on. So if we have something that's completely black, yeah, the white just goes on top of it. That might actually be really useful for people that are trying to do like manga stuff in traditional. So this is a gray one. Now, the only problem that I'm having is I'm not entirely sure how to create darker shades of one color, because if I now place the blue on top of it, it just overlays the normal blue. Maybe if I use black, it makes... No, that just goes straight black. And then I guess with the blue, I should be able to make it blue again, yeah. Huh. Because right here, I did manage to make it darker when I blended green and red. Placing red on top of blue does create a darker blue, but if placing a color on top of a red creates a darker version of that color, then maybe if I do this, it creates a... No, it doesn't. Regardless, we'll get back to this one later. Right now, I'm thinking that the use for this might be to place highlights of certain colors on top of other colors, but I guess we'll see that later. Next up, we have these, the Ohuhu acrylic paint markers. I'm not sure what the difference is between acrylic markers and acrylic paint markers, so yeah, let's test it. So this set has 36 colors with also every single useful color by the looks of it. These markers have two tips. They have the dotted tip, which I don't really see myself using that often because I'm not a huge fan of that. And then they have the brush tip, which is just a standard brush tip. Does feel pretty good to use, also goes down pretty easily, and I'm pretty sure these also don't bleed through the paper. And then the blending test. Wait, so normally it looks like this, and then that is the blended one. So it looks like this, just like the other one, does not blend, and instead it just puts the color on top of the previous color. So even if I have this, actually, it does seem to somewhat blend it. Yeah, it does make a different color, because this one normally... Wait, I don't have to shake it. This one normally looks like that. If I put it on top of the reddish pink one, it doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot, but on top of blue... Wait a second. It created a different color over here, but then when I just put it on top of the blue one, it created another different color. My brain actually can't comprehend how these function or what I'm supposed to do with them, but I guess we'll just leave it at that. I've given up on doing the sphere shading thing because I'm not sure how these work to begin with. So supposedly, from what I saw on the website, you can combine these, and then that's supposed to allow you to like make a gradient. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. These also dry really quickly, by the way, in case you were wondering. I think they dry within like 20 seconds. So that's it for the acrylic paint markers. And like I said, I'm not entirely sure how these work. You can create gradients with it, but I don't know how to actually do some like traditional shading with it in terms of values. So that's going to be interesting to figure out. Next, we have the Honolulu Plus alcohol markers. So these are similar to their regular alcohol markers, I'm pretty sure, or well, similar to like alcohol markers from other brands as well, except these are the Plus series, so they're supposed to be more durable, I guess, and the brush tip is supposed to be better. Just slight upgrades compared to the normal ones. So these have the chisel tip, which I think you're supposed to use that if you want to color like wider areas. And then they also have the brush tip, which I think is just better in most regards. And with these, you can just overlay the colors to create different colors, and I think it's actually a lot easier to shade with these than it is with the acrylics. I might just have to give the acrylics, you know, more practice to be able to use them better, but I think these are just so much easier to combine. I've got two markers here. The top one is the Plus series and the bottom one is the regular one. So I guess let's just test both of these and see if they actually feel any different. There is definitely a difference in how they feel. I feel like this one, which is the Plus series, I feel like that one is a lot softer than the top one. And therefore, it might be easier to get the colors down. It's not a huge difference, though, to the point where I feel like if I did a blind test with it, I probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Although I'm sure somebody that is used to using these would probably be able to tell the difference, and they would probably prefer the Plus series. But from a casual perspective, yeah, there doesn't really seem to be that big of a difference, not even with how these colors blend. I know some people can do some crazy stuff with alcohol markers. I'm not entirely sure how they do it. When you know how to use them, it does create a really cool effect that you can't really create digitally, so it has that uniqueness to it. I think if I had the time, I would learn how to use these markers because I think they're also really fun to use. But as it stands right now, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then now we'll take a look at the, by the way, the markers did bleed through, unfortunately. They're not all powerful. But yeah, now we'll take a look at the oil-based colored pencils. We've got 72 in total, and I guess this is kind of the effect that it's supposed to create. Now, I'm not too familiar with colored pencils. I've done a bit of shading using like regular graphite pencils, but this is going to be a completely new experience. Then I guess just like with the other one, the rest of the colors are below this. So yeah, 72 colors in total. Looks like we have access to pretty much every color we need. So these are oil-based, and as you would have expected, I'm not sure what the difference is between oil-based and just regular pencils, but I guess we'll find out through just testing. So it seems like you can have it go down light, and then if you press harder, it goes down darker. So it seems pretty standard so far. But let's test blending. I guess I'll try to see what happens when you mix blue and red. The colored pencils that I used to have as a kid, they never like blended well, so I'm not I'm not sure if these are going to perform better. They probably will, because I can already see that it's kind of creating a blend here, but I'm not sure how I'm supposed to make it. Or well, actually, it did create a pretty nice gradient by the looks of it. They also cover, like, surprisingly a pretty wide area. I think this one like barely shows up on camera. But they cover a surprisingly wide area for, just being pencils. So what happens if I, like, overlay red on top of this? Because it did create a pretty good gradient. I guess the red just made the other one completely invisible. So now, if I put blue on top of this, it's a blue plus green mix. And then, okay, that's actually pretty nice. The fact that you can create kind of different colors by overlaying pencils on top of each other, that's pretty cool. Instead of trying the sphere, I'm actually curious to see if I can create planes that have like a different value. So logic tells me that if I use a darker blue, I should be able to make one of these faces darker. So let's see if that actually works, and it does seem to work. I think I can actually use red to kind of make this more purple-ish, which should also function well as a shadow color for blue. Let me use green to make this side a bit darker and see how that turns out. Actually, I'm curious what black would do. If it would make it like much darker, or it doesn't really seem to be changing too much. This side still seems darker because of yeah, what happens when I put black on top of this? It just makes it pure black if I do that. That does look pretty nice though, I gotta say. What's surprising to me is how solid a lot of these colors look, because there's like basically no gaps in here, even with my, completely inexperienced pencil shading. I think out of all the equipment that I've tested, the pencils might be my favorite equipment to use, but I think overall I like the effect that the alcohol markers create the most. Alright, for the artwork, I figured I'm going to do one character with the colored pencils, and then the other one with the alcohol markers, and then I'll use the acrylics to do highlights and that sort of stuff, because I did try them out a bit more after having tested them out for the first time. I did play around with them a bit more, and I still can't really figure out how to use them, because I think the way you're supposed to use them is, instead of shading like you would do traditionally, like with values, you have to use them as if you're kind of shading with color, as well as using the gradient function to kind of create those gradients to give you slightly different colors. But those are things that I'm just not used to doing, so I figured I wouldn't attempt it because it probably wouldn't turn out that well, and it probably takes a lot of practice to get good at that as well. So instead, I just went with the traditional route of using the stuff I'm familiar with, and then using the acrylics to, just kind of be supplementary. So with the colored pencils, I was actually kind of surprised by how easily they blended together and how easily you can mix different colors, because, I am a casual, or I guess a beginner when it comes to coloring and traditional, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But you can very easily put down one color and then use a color with a different value and overlay it on top of that original color and kind of create a blend between them. And you actually have a surprising amount of control when you're doing that, because like the pencil is of course pressure sensitive, so the harder you press, the darker the color gets. So by playing around with that pressure sensitivity, you can kind of change the color that you get, and it's actually very similar to painting. Now it does take a little longer because the like the pen or the pencil tip is really tiny, so you have to spend a lot of time going over the same area to actually, or well, not the same area, but you have to spend a lot of time to actually fill up the area that you want to color. That's something I'm not a huge fan of. And another thing, they give you plenty of colors, or I guess there are plenty of colors included in this pencil set to pretty much make whatever color you want through blending. Because as you'll see in the final image, I was able to create quite a wide range of colors by mixing stuff like blue and gray and red. Only thing I'm not entirely sure about yet is how to create a darker version of red, because when I was trying to shade her eyes, I wanted to make them super dark so I could make the areas that are lighter, or so that I could create a better contrast, but I was not actually sure how to create that dark color, because I ended up mixing some black in there. Well, I originally tried it with gray, blue, then I tried black, and it still didn't end up as dark as I wanted it to. I'm sure it's possible to create a really dark color, but I'm not sure how to do that. Then, as for the alcohol markers, I've used these before, and there's a pretty big learning curve when it comes to using these things, because like the problem that I have when I first used them is that I didn't know how to blend the colors as well as create the colors that I wanted, because you only get a limited selection of colors and you kind of have to blend to create different colors. And I'm still not quite sure how to do those things. So for the most part, I was just playing around trying to make, certain, or trying to create certain effects, and it just didn't go the way I wanted it to. I think the difficulty with alcohol markers is that there are so many versions of the same color, or I guess one color has so many different shades. It's like with pink, for example, there are like 7 different types of pink that I have in the set, and I guess each one is used to create a different effect when you mix it with different colors or when you use it a certain way. But it takes a lot of experimentation to be able to know what those combinations are. So there's a fairly high skill ceiling when it comes to this, and I think another thing that makes them so difficult to use is the fact that when the colors start drying, they kind of appear differently, or they sort of blend as soon as they start drying, because you'll see it with the really light pink that I used. When you put it down, it appears kind of grayish, but then as soon as it dries, it starts blending with the other colors that are on there, and you like barely see it at that point. And a lot of the colors do that, so it takes a lot of experience to be able to like use the right color in the right spot. You also have to kind of plan out beforehand where you're going to put certain colors, because you can't take away colors, you can't just erase whatever the marker put down. So if there's a part that's supposed to be lighter than all of the other parts, you have to make sure that you're not going over that with a darker color and that you keep it kind of empty. So highlighted areas are kind of difficult to do, but thankfully the acrylic markers, they can overlay on top of the colored pencils as well as the alcohol markers, meaning that if you have a highlighted color, you can use those acrylic markers to do it. And that's all I've got for you today, so tell me in the comments what else you want to see next, and then I guess I will catch you all next time.